So there's been a lot of talk, certainly in the past 24 hours or so. David Johnston, the special rapporteur, announcing there's no need, in his opinion, for a public inquiry into alleged Chinese spying or interference in Canadian elections. But when he announced that yesterday, he also decided to take a shot, if you will, at Canadian media for having reported this story in the first place. We spoke to Robert Fife of the Globe and Mail when this first happened. Well, here's what David Johnston said yesterday about media's involvement in this.
The recent allegations of foreign interference in media reports have amplified public concern around these issues. They raise legitimate questions which deserve complete answers. Much of what has been reported has been based on limited and partial intelligence. That reporting has been made without the benefit of the full context provided by all relevant materials. Experienced, intelligent professionals understand that individual pieces of intelligence must be viewed with considerable skepticism. It is extremely rare to draw conclusions, much less take action, from a single intelligence report. Only upon seeing the full picture, with the benefit of all relevant intelligence, can one conclude that much of the reported intelligence has been misconstrued in media reports, presumably because of this lack of context in these instances.
Okay, there's a lot there to unpack. Robert Fife, on the line right now, Canadian journalist, Ottawa bureau chief at the Globe and Mail. Mr. Fife, first of all, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Please tell me your reaction to what you heard David Johnston say just now.
Well, he has found fault with some reporting, but the global TV's one, particularly in Han-Dong, which he said was false. In terms of our reporting, we reported on the basis of written intelligence assessments and written intelligence briefs. These were documents that CJAD wrote, and we did not use anonymous sources. We were writing what the document said. So, for example, in the 2021 election, the CJAD documents quote the Consul General in Vancouver, the West Coast boss for the Communist Party of China, who had enormous influence within the Chinese-Canadian community in the Vancouver and British Columbia, as saying, quote, that she, quote, wanted the Liberal Party to win the 2021 election, unquote. It said that Ms. Tong, who returned to China on July 28, and another former consul, Wang Jin, made discreet and subtle efforts to encourage members of Chinese-Canadian organizations to rally votes for the Liberals and defeat conservative candidates. And then in his report, Mr. Johnston says, well, they didn't really show a party preference. They wanted to support people who they thought would help China and to defeat people who might malign or not have the interest of the Chinese Communist Party. Well, in the 2021 election, the Conservative Party had campaigned on banning Huawei technologies from Canada and had wanted to set up a foreign agent registry, which China had strongly opposed. So the evidence is pretty clear here that there was an effort, according to CJAD documents, that China would prefer to have liberals in government rather than conservatives.
So you heard David Johnston say in that clip that we just played that the media, and I'm guessing we're bunching everybody into that same sort of group here, didn't necessarily have, now that he's seen all the information, contextually everything they needed to draw that sort of a conclusion.
Well, I can't answer that because all I can do is quote you what the Consul General, CJAD has the Consul General in Vancouver saying. I mean, it's a quote from her. So,
Mr. Fife,
we didn't miscrew anything. We reported what we were told.
Right. Well,
in those documents.
It certainly seems like David Johnston is saying, well, if you could see what I saw, if you knew the whole story, then you would agree with me that we can't hold a public inquiry.
Here's another problem we have with David Johnston. He simply accepts the word of the Prime Minister and these senior cabinet ministers that they didn't know anything. I asked the Prime Minister. He said, I didn't know that. I asked Bill Blair. He said I didn't know anything. That's the problem with these with this kind of an inquiry. If you have a judicial inquiry, you have full subpoena powers, you have the a power to cross-examine witnesses, and you have the power to get all the documents you want to. And, this is not a judicial inquiry doesn't just say, oh, well, you told me you didn't know anything about it. They will want to know the evidence to show that you didn't know anything about it. Follow the paper trail. Have people who are in your office cross-examine, even if there's a problem that you may see with the Prime Minister perhaps not telling you the truth, you call them and cross-examine them. That's why so many people, and particularly the three opposition parties, are saying we need a judicial inquiry into this so we can actually find out what is going on and not simply take the word of politicians who it is clearly not in their interest to have an inquiry.
It sounds laughable when you say it, honestly.
Part of what came out in this report, in David Johnston's report, Mr. Fife, is he said there are no examples of ministers, the Prime Minister, or their officers failing to act, which seems completely different, if you will, from what you had said, which was, in fact, there was a failure to act.
Look, there was a document that, and the government themselves had to kick out a Chinese diplomat out of the country a couple of weeks ago. Document said this consul in Toronto was attempting to intimidate Michael Chong, the conservative foreign policy critic, and his family members in Hong Kong. And nobody saw this document? Nobody saw it? Not the Prime Minister, not Bill Blair, the public safety minister at the time. Apparently, the top email system in his office wasn't working. And
Again.
Nobody in the Privy Council office would have said, holy Moses, look what they're trying to do. I'm going to run this in to tell the Prime Minister. But what does David Johnston do? Did you know about this? No, the Prime Minister told me he didn't.
Again, it absolutely sounds laughable.
Well,
So
I almost wonder, would it be fair to say, in your opinion, I think others have suggested the same, this idea of public hearings is basically a giant waste of time?
Well, it hasn't been public hearings. David Johnston, who is not a national security expert, is not a judge with national security credentials. He goes in and CSIS presents some of the documents to him. We don't even know if he questioned. Well, I want to see more documents. Oh, this doesn't make any sense. We don't know any of that. And then he comes out with a report, which basically, by the way, slams the media, which the media, by the way, if it wasn't for our reporting and global news reporting, even though they got some stuff seriously wrong, we would not even have an inquiry into this. And it wouldn't be the main issue in the House of Commons. Canadians have woken up just to the extent of how China influence in our politics, but also in how they try to recruit business people and how they intimidate their own, the Chinese diaspora in this country. All of that wouldn't be known if it wasn't for leaks to the media and reports about this. Otherwise, government would have covered it up.
So, Mr. Fife, then, David Johnston saying no public inquiry, but public hearings. In your opinion, what should happen next?
Well, I believe that what the country needs is a judicial inquiry with the full subpoena powers to not only get documents and witnesses and to cross-examine so that we can actually find out if the government was aware of this, who was aware of it, why, if it didn't get to the Prime Minister, why didn't it get to the Prime Minister? We need somebody that the public will trust, because right now, when you have three opposition parties saying that David Johnston cannot be trusted, and with, I mean, he's a man of, I'm sure he's a man of great integrity, but let's face it, he's a Trudeau family friend. He was on the Trudeau Foundation.
Okay.
If he was a judge and Trudeau was a defendant before him, he would have to take himself off the case.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one last thing before we run out of time, and that's this idea, and the Prime Minister sort of made some hay or tried to today in his press conference, talking about the fact that, look, despite what you may think, he's invited all the opposition parties, to go ahead, get security clearance, and go ahead and examine everything that Mr. Johnston has seen. And so far, we've heard from everyone that no one is going to do that. What do you make of that?
Well, the NDP leader said he would do it, but the Conservative and the Bloc Quebec Wall leader are not going to do this, and for this reason. If they see these documents and they are very troubled by it, they're bound by secrecy. So they're handcuffed. And so they will have members of their party look at these documents that they themselves do not want to swear an oath of secrecy and then see these documents and then be prevented because they would face prosecution under the Security of Information Act from telling Canadians that they do not, they have very troubling, they're very troubled by what they may have felt that what Johnston did not go far enough, or they found some serious issues in how he gathered the intelligence. They can't say that because they could be prosecuted. So other members of the party will be able to look at that, but they themselves are not going to be doing that because they want to be able to have the freedom in the House of Commons to be able to go after the government.
Right.
So an exercise in futility, as basically that turns out to be.
Yet another one.
All right. Mr. Fife, I want to thank you so much for your time and for all your work on this file as well. I think a lot of Canadians, as you said, appreciate the work that you have done, because without it, we might not even be talking about this today. So thanks so much. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Robert Fife, Ottawa chief of the Globe and Mail. He is kind of the focus on this, right? Those articles are what kind of kicked off this whole investigation. So we shall see where it goes from here.
We're not going to get a judicial inquiry.
Yeah.
We're not getting a public inquiry. We're definitely not getting a judicial inquiry. But he's right to call for one.
Yeah.